there's a part of last night my mind refuses to show me, and I'm afraid of what I'll find when it finally does. I remember fragments. The darkness, the strange feeling that something was wrong, the sensation of losing control over my own thoughts. But whenever I try to reach beyond those fragments, my mind seems to pull me back. It is as though some part of me is protecting me from a memory I am not ready to face. I have never been afraid of the unknown. I was raised to walk toward danger when everyone else stepped away from it. Yet this is different. This isn't an enemy standing in front of me. It's a missing piece inside my own mind. And I don't know what happened in the space between the memories I have and the ones I can't reach. The uncertainty is haunting me more than any nightmare could. I keep searching through the night in my memory, trying to connect every fragment, every sensation, every unfamiliar detail. The harder I try, the more distant it becomes. I remember enough to know that something happened, but not enough to understand what. That contradiction is slowly becoming unbearable. I can accept a painful truth. I can face betrayal. I can stand before an enemy and hear exactly what they intend to do. What terrifies me is discovering that something happened while I wasn't completely myself. For the first time in my life, I don't completely trust my own memory. And that frightens me more than I want to admit. There is also one thought I cannot escape. What if the missing part contains something that could change everything? What if I remember something that I desperately wish I could forget? What if I discover that someone manipulated me, used my trust, or deliberately put me in a situation I would never have chosen while fully aware? My mind keeps creating possibilities, each one darker than the last, and I have to force myself to stop before fear turns uncertainty into a false reality. I refuse to accuse anyone without knowing the truth. I refuse to let fear write a story my memory hasn't confirmed. But I also refuse to ignore the feeling that something is wrong. That feeling has stayed with me since I woke up. It sits quietly beneath every thought. And when I look at you, it becomes even stronger. Because whatever happened last night, I don't want its darkness touching you. I don't want you carrying questions that belong to me. I don't want you looking at me and wondering whether the man you trust is hiding something, even from himself. I want to find the truth before the uncertainty becomes another shadow between us. So I am going to remember. Slowly, carefully. Without forcing my mind into places it isn't ready to go. I will follow the fragments instead of inventing the missing pieces. I will pay attention to what I can verify. I will seek the truth from reality rather than allowing fear to fill the gaps. Because I am a prince, and I have survived secrets before. But this time, the secret isn't hidden somewhere in the palace. It's hidden inside me. And until I uncover it, I won't pretend that everything is fine. There is a darkness surrounding last night that I can feel but cannot yet name. And perhaps the most frightening part is knowing that when my memory finally returns, I may have to face a version of the night that I am not prepared to remember. Still, I would rather face an unbearable truth than live comfortably inside a lie. So let the memory come when it is ready. I won't run from it. Whatever I find in that darkness, I will face it with open eyes. Because I may be afraid of what happened last night, but I am more afraid of never knowing. The silence in my mind has become its own kind of prison. I keep reaching for that missing moment, but every time I get close, something inside me pulls away. I remember the beginning of the night. I remember certain details that feel strangely sharp, almost too clear. Then there is nothing, a blank space where something should be. I hate that emptiness. I was trained to remember everything that matters, to notice every movement, every face, every change in someone's voice. My life depends on awareness. Yet now I am standing in front of the one mystery I cannot solve simply by thinking harder. And that loss of control unsettles me. I can handle uncertainty when it comes from an enemy. An enemy has motives. A threat leaves traces. A betrayal has a face. But how do I fight something I cannot remember? How do I defend myself against a moment that exists somewhere inside my mind, but refuses to reveal itself? I can search the palace, question the people around me, examine every detail of the night. But none of those things can immediately tell me what happened inside my own consciousness. That is what makes this different from every battle I have ever faced. My mind is the one place I was always supposed to control. Now there is a locked door inside it, and I don't know what's behind it. Sometimes I wonder whether forgetting is actually protecting me. Perhaps my mind is refusing to reveal something because it knows I am not ready. Perhaps there is a reason certain memories remain buried after frightening experiences. I don't know. What I do know is that forcing myself to remember every second may only make the fear worse. So I am trying to be patient with myself, even though patience has never been my greatest strength. I have always demanded answers immediately. This time, I may have to wait. That thought frustrates me more than I can explain. There are moments when I feel almost certain that I remember something, only for the image to disappear before I can hold on to it. A shadow, a movement, a sound, a strange sensation of being watched. None of it is enough to create a complete story, and I refuse to turn fragments into facts. I have seen too many people destroy lives because they confuse suspicion with certainty. I will not make that mistake. Not even now. Especially now. Because there is someone I love who could be affected by whatever truth is waiting for me. I don't want my fear to spill into your life. I don't want to become suspicious of everyone around you simply because my own memory is incomplete. I don't want to look at every person in the palace as an enemy. Until I know what happened, I will keep my thoughts controlled. But I won't ignore the warning inside me either. Something happened. I can feel that much. And perhaps that is why the night keeps returning to me in pieces. My body remembers things my mind cannot explain. Certain places make me uneasy without an obvious reason. Certain sounds seem strangely familiar. Sometimes I close my eyes and feel a sudden wave of discomfort, as though my mind is standing at the edge of the missing memory, but refuses to cross it. I don't know whether those feelings are clues or simply fear. So I will not trust them blindly. I will look for what can be confirmed. That is the only way through this. There is another fear I haven't allowed myself to say aloud. What if the truth changes the way I see someone I trust? What if the missing memory reveals something about a person I never suspected? What if the person responsible has been standing close to me all along, smiling while I remained unaware? The possibility makes the palace feel different. Familiar corridors suddenly seem full of unanswered questions. Familiar faces seem harder to read. Yet I won't let suspicion poison everything. Trust should not disappear simply because fear has entered the room. If there is betrayal, I will face it when I have proof. If there is danger, I will confront it when I understand it. If there is something I need to take responsibility for, I will accept it. But I will not punish myself for something I cannot remember. That is perhaps the hardest lesson of all. I am accustomed to taking responsibility. If something goes wrong under my watch, I immediately search for my own failure. But I cannot blame myself for every unknown. I cannot rewrite a night simply because I wish I had been more aware. Sometimes terrible things happen outside our control. Sometimes the only thing we can control is what we do after we realize something is wrong. and what I do now matters. I will find the truth. I will take care of myself. I will protect the people I love. And I will not allow fear to turn me into someone I don't recognize. There is something almost poetic about the irony of it all. I spent my entire life believing the greatest threats would come from outside the palace. I prepared for enemies, political games, betrayal, and every kind of danger a prince is expected to face. Yet the most frightening battle I have ever faced is happening silently inside my own mind. No army can fight it for me. No guard can stand at the door of it. No crown can command it to open. I have to face it myself, and I will. Even if the memory is painful, even if it changes everything, even if it forces me to confront something I desperately wish were not true. Because I would rather know the truth and survive its weight than spend the rest of my life afraid of a darkness I cannot name. For now, I will breathe. I will stay grounded in what I know. I will stop treating every unanswered question as evidence of the worst possibility. And when that missing piece finally returns, I will face it without running. Whatever happened last night belongs to the past. But what I choose to do with the truth belongs to me. And I refuse to let a forgotten moment decide the man I become. The hardest part isn't the missing memory anymore. It's the feeling that something happened to me while I wasn't completely in control of myself. And I don't know whether I was afraid, confused, or simply unable to understand what was happening. I have always trusted my mind. It has been the one thing I could rely on when everything around me became uncertain. Now even my own memories feel like a room with the lights turned off. I reach for the truth and find only silence. And somehow, that silence hurts more than any answer I could imagine. I keep thinking about how different I am tonight. The prince everyone knows would normally have an explanation by now. He would have examined every possibility, demanded every detail, and refused to rest until the mystery was solved. But beneath that controlled exterior is a man who is genuinely scared. Not of what someone might have done to me, but of what I might discover when that missing part of the night finally returns. I don't know whether it will be something painful, something humiliating, or something that changes the way I look at people I once trusted. The uncertainty is slowly becoming its own kind of wound. And then I think of you. That is when the fear becomes unbearable, because I don't want you to look into my eyes and see uncertainty. I don't want you to wonder whether something is wrong with the man you trusted. I don't want my confusion to become something that makes you afraid of me or afraid for me. You have already seen enough darkness. You shouldn't have to carry mine too. If I am frightened, I want to face that fear without making it yours. There is a strange tenderness in realizing how much I care about what you feel. Before you, I would have hidden everything. I would have buried the fear beneath duty, walked into another meeting, and pretended nothing had happened. But now I understand that hiding every wound doesn't make a man stronger. Sometimes strength is admitting that something hurts and refusing to let that pain define you. So tonight, I am allowing myself to be afraid. I am allowing myself to admit that I don't remember everything. I am allowing myself to say that I need time. And somehow, that honesty feels more powerful than pretending I have all the answers. I wish I could protect you from every darkness in this world. I wish I could protect myself from every darkness too. But I am beginning to understand that neither of us needs to be untouched by darkness to be worthy of love. We only need someone willing to stay when the lights go out. And if you ever see me struggling with memories I cannot explain, I don't want you to mistake my silence for distance. Sometimes silence is simply the place where a frightened mind goes to gather itself. Sometimes a person doesn't need another question. They need someone who remains close without demanding anything. That is what I hope you understand about me. If I become quiet, it doesn't mean I stopped caring. If I look lost for a moment, it doesn't mean I forgot you. If I seem distant, it may simply mean I am fighting something inside myself that I don't yet know how to explain. And through all of it, there is one thought that keeps bringing me back to myself. You are real. This moment is real. What I know now is real. The rest can wait until I am ready to face it. Maybe tomorrow the memory will return. Maybe it will take longer. Maybe I will need help understanding what happened. Whatever comes, I will not let shame keep me silent. I will not allow fear to convince me that I have to face everything alone. And I will not turn an incomplete memory into a punishment against myself. I deserve the same compassion I would give you. That realization nearly breaks me, because I know exactly how I would treat you if you were standing where I am standing now. I would tell you that you didn't have to remember everything immediately. I would tell you that being frightened didn't make you weak. I would tell you that whatever happened, you deserved safety, respect, and the chance to understand it without being pressured. Now I have to give those words to myself, and perhaps that is the beginning of healing. There is still darkness inside the missing part of last night, but darkness does not mean there is no way out. A forgotten moment doesn't have to become a permanent prison. A frightening experience doesn't have to become the definition of a person's future. I will find my way through it. Slowly, honestly, without pretending. And if the truth hurts when it finally comes, I will let it hurt without allowing it to destroy me. Because I have survived difficult truths before. I have survived betrayal. I have survived loneliness. I have survived the weight of a crown that was never light. And I will survive this too. But this time, I don't want to survive by becoming colder. I want to survive by becoming more human. And when I finally remember what happened, I hope I can look back at this version of myself with compassion. The prince who was afraid, the man who didn't have all the answers, and the heart that still chose to believe that tomorrow could be gentler than tonight. The silence of that missing memory follows me everywhere now. I can sit in the grandest room in the palace, surrounded by people, and still feel as though a part of me is somewhere else, standing at the edge of a night I cannot completely remember. Everyone sees the prince who appears composed, but inside, I am exhausted from trying to understand myself. I keep searching through fragments, hoping one small detail will unlock everything, yet every time I reach for it, the memory slips away. It leaves me wondering whether I am protecting myself from something painful or simply trapped inside the uncertainty of not knowing. What frightens me most is not the possibility that the truth will hurt. I have survived pain before. What frightens me is the possibility that the truth might change something I thought I understood about myself, about someone I trusted, or about the people surrounding me. There is a particular kind of fear in realizing that your own memory can have empty spaces. I can accept an enemy standing in front of me because I can see the threat. I can accept betrayal when I know where it came from. But an unanswered question inside my own mind gives me nothing to fight except my imagination, and imagination can create monsters far more terrifying than reality. So, I am trying not to punish myself with possibilities. I remind myself that not remembering something immediately does not mean the worst thing happened. Fear has a way of filling empty spaces with the darkest explanations. I refuse to let it do that to me. I will separate what I know from what I fear. I will hold on to facts instead of assumptions. I will allow myself to seek help if I need it. Because there is no shame in admitting that something happened beyond my ability to understand alone. A prince may be expected to have answers, but I am still a human being, and human beings sometimes need someone beside them when the path becomes unclear. And strangely, thinking about you makes that truth easier to accept. Because if it were you standing in my place, I would never expect you to solve everything alone. I would never tell you that being frightened was a weakness. I would never demand that you remember something before your mind was ready. I would give you time. I would listen. I would remind you that your worth doesn't change because something happened beyond your control. Now I am trying to offer myself the same kindness. Perhaps that is what I needed most. Not another interrogation. Not another theory. Not another person telling me what I should remember. Just permission to breathe. There is still a darkness surrounding last night, but I am beginning to understand that darkness doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it simply means there is something I haven't understood yet. Maybe the memory will return naturally. Maybe it won't return in the way I expect. Either way, I cannot spend the rest of my life standing at the same locked door, terrified of what might be behind it. I have a life beyond that night. I have people who care about me. I have responsibilities that still matter. And I have you. That last thought is the one that softens me when everything becomes overwhelming. I don't want to turn my fear into distance between us. I don't want you to feel that you have to walk carefully around me because you know something is wrong. I want you to understand that if I become quiet, it isn't because my feelings for you have changed. If anything, this experience has made me realize how deeply I value the people who make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable. You are one of those people. And that is why I am terrified of allowing this darkness to touch what we have. I don't want my uncertainty to make me suspicious of you. I don't want unanswered questions to make me push you away. I don't want fear to convince me that isolation is safer than trust. Those are easy choices when you're afraid. Closing every door feels safer than allowing anyone inside. But I know what happens when I live behind locked doors. I become someone I don't recognize. Cold, distant, untouchable. And I don't want to return to that man. I would rather face uncertainty while remaining human than become emotionless simply because I am afraid of being hurt. So I will keep moving forward. One day at a time. One memory at a time. One breath at a time. And if the truth finally comes back to me, I will not run from it. I will not let shame convince me that I should have known better. I will not let fear make me believe that I am somehow less worthy because I lost control of a moment I cannot fully remember. Whatever happened, I am still here. That matters. I am still capable of loving. I am still capable of protecting. I am still capable of choosing what kind of man I want to be after something frightening happens. And perhaps that is the part of the story I have been missing. The night may have taken away a piece of my certainty, but it doesn't get to take away my future. It doesn't get to take away my ability to trust again. It doesn't get to take away the person I am becoming. And it certainly doesn't get to decide what you and I become. There is a strange strength in accepting that I don't know everything yet. For once, I don't need to pretend. I don't need to wear certainty like another part of my crown. I can simply admit that I am searching for answers, and that I am afraid of what they might reveal. But I am searching anyway, because courage isn't the absence of fear. It is refusing to let fear decide where you stop. And I have come too far to stop now. I barely slept after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind seemed to take me back to the same few fragments, but never far enough to give me the whole picture. I would remember a hallway, the faint glow of lights against the walls, the feeling that I was trying to focus on something and couldn't. Then everything would become blurred again. I would wake suddenly, sit at the edge of the bed, and stare into the darkness while trying to convince myself that I was safe in my own room. The strangest part was how normal the palace looked in the morning. Servants moved through the corridors. Guards stood at their usual posts. Sunlight entered through the tall windows, and everyone continued with their routines as if the night had never happened. Only I knew that something inside me had changed. I tried to act normally at breakfast. I answered questions, looked through reports, and listened to the morning briefing. But my attention kept drifting. A cup touched the table, and the sound suddenly reminded me of something I couldn't place. Someone walked past the doorway wearing a familiar scent, and for a second my mind reacted before I understood why. I looked up too quickly, searching the person's face for an answer I didn't even know how to ask for. Then the feeling disappeared. Moments like that are what frighten me most. They make me wonder how many clues are hidden around me, waiting for something to trigger them. I have started keeping track of what I actually remember instead of forcing myself to remember what I don't. I write down the details before they fade, where I believe I was, who I remember seeing, what I was wearing, what time I think it was, and which parts feel uncertain. It is frustrating because the list of things I don't know seems longer than the list of things I do. But writing everything down gives me something solid to hold on to. I don't want my fear to fill the gaps with imaginary answers. If there is a truth waiting for me, I want to discover it honestly, not create it out of panic. There was one moment today when I almost convinced myself that I had remembered everything. I was standing near one of the palace windows when a sudden image crossed my mind. Someone standing nearby, a shadow falling across the floor, and my own hand reaching for something. It lasted only a second. Then it was gone. I stood there completely still, trying to bring it back, but the harder I tried, the more impossible it became. My heart was beating faster, and for a moment I felt the old instinct to force the memory open. Instead, I stepped away from the window and allowed myself to breathe. I reminded myself that one fragment isn't an explanation. It is simply a fragment. That restraint has been difficult. I am accustomed to solving problems immediately. If there is a security concern, I want answers. If there is a political threat, I want information. If someone betrays the palace, I want to know why. But this isn't a problem I can solve through authority alone. I cannot command my mind to reveal something before it is ready. I cannot interrogate a memory. I cannot threaten it into becoming clear. All I can do is create enough calm around myself that I can recognize the truth when it finally surfaces. And perhaps that's why I have been thinking about you so much. You have always been the person who could make me slow down without even trying. When everything inside me becomes too loud, your presence has a way of making the noise quieter. I don't need you to solve this for me. I don't need you to search my memories or give me answers you don't have. I simply need to know that I don't have to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. There is comfort in knowing that someone can see the uncertainty in my eyes and not mistake it for weakness. I never understood how exhausting it could be to question your own memory. Every ordinary detail suddenly becomes something I might need to examine. A door being open when I expected it to be closed. A message I don't remember reading. A conversation someone remembers having with me that I can't recall. None of these things prove anything on their own, but together they leave me with a feeling I can't dismiss. Something about that night remains unfinished, and I need to understand why. Still, I refuse to let this turn me into someone who sees betrayal everywhere. That would be another way of allowing fear to control me. I won't punish innocent people because I am confused. I won't accuse someone simply because my mind needs a name to attach to the uncertainty. If there is someone responsible, evidence will reveal it. Until then, I will remain careful. That doesn't mean I am ignoring the danger. It means I am taking it seriously enough to be rational. I have also realized how important it is to stay around people I trust while I work through this. Isolation makes everything worse. When I'm alone for too long, every unanswered question becomes larger. Every possibility becomes darker. But when I am around people I trust, I can remind myself that the present is real, even if the past is unclear. I can eat, sleep, work, and continue living instead of allowing one night to consume everything. I don't know what the missing part of that night contains. Maybe it will eventually be something frightening. Maybe it will be something completely different from what I fear. Maybe some of the details I believe I remember are wrong. I have to accept all three possibilities. And if the truth turns out to be painful, I will deal with it when it comes. I won't allow an imagined future to make me suffer before reality has even arrived. For now, I am choosing the present. The sunlight through the windows, the sound of footsteps in the corridor, the warmth of a cup in my hands, the knowledge that I am here awake, safe, and capable of making my own decisions. Those things are real. And until my mind is ready to show me the rest, that is enough. I may be a prince, but tonight I am simply a man trying to understand something that frightened him. And perhaps there is nothing weak about that. Perhaps the strongest thing I can do is admit that I don't have all the answers yet, and keep moving forward anyway. I thought the missing memory would become easier to live with after a few days, but it has done the opposite. The more time passes, the more aware I become of the empty space in my mind. It follows me during meetings, during meals, even when I am standing in front of people who expect me to have complete control over everything. I can read reports and make decisions while a completely different part of my mind is quietly trying to reconstruct that night. Sometimes I catch myself staring at a page without actually reading it because one tiny detail has suddenly returned. A sound, a movement, the feeling of someone's presence. And then it disappears before I can understand it. I have started to realize how frightening it is when your own mind gives you pieces of a story, but refuses to tell you the ending. I don't want to become obsessed with finding an answer so quickly that I create one myself. That's the temptation. When there is a gap in memory, the mind hates leaving it empty. It starts filling the silence with possibilities. Maybe this happened. Maybe that happened. Maybe someone was there. Maybe someone lied. Maybe I made a decision I don't remember making. Every possibility creates another question, and every question creates another fear. I have to keep reminding myself that a possibility is not a fact. I refuse to condemn anyone, including myself, based on something I cannot prove. That discipline has become harder than any political negotiation I've ever faced. There was a moment yesterday when I walked into a corridor and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity. I stopped without knowing why. The hallway looked completely ordinary. The same stone floor, the same paintings, the same dim lights. But something in me reacted as though I had been there during the missing part of the night. My heartbeat changed before my thoughts did. I stood there for several seconds, trying to understand what my body was remembering. Then I noticed a small detail near one of the doors, something I hadn't paid attention to before, and suddenly I had another fragment. Not a complete memory. Just a feeling of standing there and looking toward the same door. It vanished almost immediately. I stayed there for a long time afterward. Not because I had discovered the truth, but because I realized something important. Forcing the memory wasn't helping. It was coming back in moments when I wasn't demanding it. That means I need to stop treating my mind like an enemy I have to defeat. Maybe it is trying to process something in its own way. Maybe the more pressure I put on myself, the more difficult it becomes. So I am learning patience. That is not something I was ever good at. As a prince, I was taught that hesitation could cost lives. Decisions had to be made quickly. Doubt had to be pushed aside. If a threat appeared, action followed. But this isn't a battlefield. There is no advantage in rushing into a conclusion. There is no victory in remembering something incorrectly. The truth deserves time. And so do I. There is another thing I have noticed. I have become much more aware of how people speak to me. Before, I would listen to the meaning of their words. Now I notice the pauses, the changes in tone, the moments when someone seems to choose a sentence too carefully. I don't assume that every hesitation means deception, but I notice it. I am more observant than before, not because I suddenly distrust everyone, but because I understand how easily information can disappear when people are frightened. Still, I don't want this experience to turn me into someone who cannot trust. Trust is already difficult inside a palace. I don't want to make it impossible. There are people here who have stood beside me for years. People who have protected me, advised me, and remained loyal when doing so brought them nothing. It would be unfair to look at them through the lens of one frightening night. So I am trying to separate caution from suspicion. I can be careful without becoming paranoid. I can ask questions without accusing. I can protect myself without shutting everyone out. And I can love you without allowing fear to dictate everything. That last part matters most. Because sometimes I catch myself wanting to know where you are simply because knowing would make my mind quieter. I have to remind myself that your freedom matters too. My anxiety is mine to manage. You shouldn't have to surrender your independence simply because I am struggling with uncertainty. If anything, this experience has made me understand how important that distinction is. Love should never become surveillance. Protection should never become control. And fear should never become an excuse to take someone's choices away. I want to be someone you feel safe around because of the way I treat you, not because I have surrounded you with rules. That is the kind of man I am trying to become. Maybe that is why this entire experience feels like more than a mystery about one night. It feels like a test of who I am when I cannot control the outcome. Anyone can appear strong when everything is going according to plan. The real test comes when something happens that you cannot immediately fix. I don't know what the final answer will be, but I know what kind of person I want to be when I discover it. Calm, honest, responsible, and strong enough to face the truth without turning it into another source of destruction. There are still moments when fear catches me unexpectedly. I can be completely calm and then suddenly remember that there is something I cannot remember. My chest tightens. My thoughts race. I wonder whether I should already know more. Then I stop and breathe. I am here. I am safe. I don't have to solve everything tonight. That simple reminder has become more powerful than I expected. And when I think about you, I remind myself of something else. Whatever happened in the past, the present is still mine to choose. I can choose to love. I can choose to trust carefully. I can choose to ask for help. I can choose to protect myself without becoming consumed by fear. I can choose to keep living while I search for answers. The missing part of last night may always remain difficult to face. Maybe the memory will return completely. Maybe it will return in pieces. Maybe I will eventually learn the truth from circumstances rather than from my own mind. Whatever happens, I will face it. Because I refuse to let one dark, unfinished night become the definition of my life. There is still a future waiting for me beyond that missing memory. And somewhere in that future, I hope there is still a place where I can feel completely at peace again. A place where I don't have to be a prince. A place where I can simply be myself. And if you're there, perhaps that will be enough to remind me that even after the darkest night, morning still comes.